Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for an episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series. I hope you're good. I hope you're well. Today I am joined by a guest who has just arrived. It's Lee Judges. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
Hey, how are we doing? You're all right. Traffic murder today. Sorry about that. Unbelievable.
Your excuse is my way, son. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's all good. The chat box are very forgiving people.
That's what I like to hear.
How's your day going, mate? All good?
Yeah, all good, all good. Busy, but like getting there, so getting there.
Good stuff, man. Now, you've had a busy day. I don't know if you've had the chance to spot some news that may have dropped onto your timeline. But if you haven't, and if you haven't in the chat box either, guys, The Athletic have reported that Arsenal have offered Granit Xhaka a new contract. So, Judges, what's your reaction to that story?
Well, 50-50 really. I'm not like bothered if Xhaka stays or he goes, if I'll be honest. If he stays, you know, we still need to improve in that area. It'd be a good player to still have in the squad, if I'll be honest. But if we're looking to improve and we're looking to get top four, then we've got to improve our midfield all round. And that means Granit Xhaka isn't quite as good as what we need for that role, as obviously has been proved in the last few seasons. But in saying that, I thought we had a fantastic Euros, and I'm surprised that Roma have not matched the offer that Arsenal want. And it's not like well over the top odds money, what I can make out of it, like, you know. So, listen, you know, he's made it clear that he wants to leave. I think there's no doubt about that. So I don't really understand why they would be offering him a new contract other than a financial one, to say, like, you know, to cover them, that he's not going to, obviously, that if he doesn't sign a contract, the cheaper he's going to be, the longer he stays. So I don't really know. I don't really understand it, if I'll be honest. Do you think, obviously, we kind of know the trajectory of this deal with Roma, and that Arsenal have been holding out for around kind of 20 million euros, and they seemingly haven't been that keen to pay it. So do you think part of this might be as kind of a ploy to encourage Roma to stump up the cash, basically? Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit in that, you know, if I'll be honest. And I think if I was Granit Xhaka, I would be a little bit like, well, if you really want me, you pay 20 million for me. You know what I mean? 20 million in this market and the way football is now is not massive. It's not massive, you know. So if they really, really want him, you pay the 20 million. Simple as that, you know. So there could be a little bit of a ploy into that. And the other thing is that, how can I say, I don't think he's going to get many better clubs than Arsenal anyway, Tom, you know. So I think he should be careful what you wish for, sort of thing. And I know that he hasn't got a fantastic relationship with the fans, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of fans getting the ump as we're talking now about it, you know. But I see good things in Xhaka and I see bad things in Xhaka. But if I be honest, I think if you're going to be looking for a team to get into the top four, then Xhaka is a very, very good squad player. If you want to get into the top four with him leading your midfield, it's not going to happen, Tom.
Do you think with Thomas Partey next to him, like, you've got that quality there, then that's enough? Because I know a lot of people say I had someone say to me today that he's a below average footballer. And I think there's kind of a rhetoric around Granit Xhaka because of the mistakes that have been made in the past. I thought last season was his best season, to be honest, in an Arsenal shirt. I thought he was one of our most integral players in the team, and especially in that second half of the season. And if we had signed a backup left back in January and he hadn't have had to drop into that left back spot, we could have maybe finished even stronger, and weren't able to do that because we lacked so much kind of quality in the midfield with him moving to the left back. So do you think that, say, we've got Thomas Partey, you've got Lokonga coming in, we're adding Ben White. Do you really think that Granit Xhaka is that much of a limiting factor that his presence in the team would stop us from, say, challenging for a top four place?
No, it wouldn't stop us challenging for a top four place, because we won't be challenging for a top four place. Listen, the midfield at this moment, Tom, is not good enough. You know, like your backup midfield players are Elneny, which is what he is on. You know, Elneny is what he is on the tin. He's a backup player. I think Xhaka would, like, if you got, say, for instance, Basuma, and then you then sold El Neni and you've got Xhaka as the backup to them two players, you'd be pretty pleased with that. That's good. That's good. But I don't think Granit Xhaka's in the age of 28 and where he is in his career to say that he wants to be a backup at a football club. And that's the problem we've got. For me, I think that, and I see why Arsenal fans are getting out. If we can get him off the books for 20 million and then bring in a Basuma or someone of that ilk, I think that they'd be more happy with it. I think with Granit Xhaka, I think that, and I'll be honest, when I looked at the Euros, international football's just that little bit slower, and look how good he looks. And I think that the Premier League just doesn't suit him as a footballer. I just don't think he's got that mobility to do it week in, week out. Now, I do think this with Granit Xhaka, and I do like, the one thing I do like about Granit Xhaka is that when things get a little bit tough and a little bit naughty in there, he's always in there. You don't mess with him. And I think that, you know, he's not a soft touch like we've had before. So when people start kicking us about, he's in there, and he's a player that I like for that. But unfortunately, I just don't think he's quick enough to get around the pitch quick enough for what we need, and also what you need to get into the top four, Tom. That's my personal opinion. There's nothing against him as a footballer, because I think that, you know, his passing range is as good as anybody's. But he's prone to mistakes. But forget about that. I think that happens with most players. Every player is prone to a mistake. I just feel that the mobility of him isn't what we need, and that's something that I think, in the way Mikel plays the game, on the wall wants to play the game, I don't think it suits Mikel as well.
I think for me, it's what's really tough about the Granit Xhaka situation is, like, I appreciate Granit Xhaka's quality as a player. Did I want us to move on from him, upgrade? Of course, I'd love us to upgrade on any player. It goes without saying. What for me is the biggest thing about the reaction specifically kind of to this deal and the idea of Granit Xhaka staying beyond this current summer is obviously the fallout and kind of the hyperbole around it, the exaggeration of kind of the end of the world almost sense about Granit Xhaka staying that there is. Let me put to you and say, Arsenal do sell Granit Xhaka this summer. We bring in Yves Bissouma. What changes dramatically about Arsenal's midfield to you that makes you think that improves us greatly to kind of really change things in the midfield? Just
dynamism. That is the only thing. I really do think that. I just think that we'll have that little bit more athleticism in the pitch. I agree with what people are saying. He's not one of the players that I would say, how can I put it? Surplus requirements at Arsenal. He's not one of those ones where you think, oh, we've got to get him. He's never going to be in the side, or he's not going to be used so much. Because I still think even if he does stay, he will be used, whether he signs a contract or not. We don't get the money that Roma are saying, and look, the club might turn around and go to him, look, we want 20 million. Just say, for instance, they're not prepared to play it, so you know you're going to have to stay here. I think then Granit Xhaka will say, well, I will stay here, but I'm not going to sign a new contract. Fair enough. Then you've got a decision to make. But I would still think, even if that scenario did happen, I still think he could be useful to the squad and to the team. It's not thing we think, oh, he's not good enough. You know what I mean? I think that he still would be a useful addition to the squad. Now, the thing is, and we've been very, very critical of Arsenal letting players go into the years left in their contract and all that. This would be another one of going into another year of his contract after this season. So it is the difficult thing what you do. I think that, you know, Arsenal have got to play hardball somewhere along the line, and they've got to start somewhere. And they've not started it with Lacazette. They've not started it with Eddie. So it looks like they're looking at Granit Xhaka. And I think that maybe, and whether fans will lose their rubbish over this or not, if they don't get to sell him, and I think Arsenal will say, look, you know, well, here's a contract, you know, and if he signs it, I think we could see a few more years of Granit Xhaka yet.
It's interesting because I'm having, whilst you're talking, I'm also trying to looking through the comments in the comment section, and what I asked you at the beginning of that question last time was kind of about what changes, and you said dynamism, and I put it into the chat, and people are saying, yep, speed of transition, speed in turning the ball over. And it's what's interesting to me about that is, whilst I like players like Ruben Neves. I like players like Bruno Guimaraes at Lyon, the Brazilian we've been linked to as well. But both of those aren't fast. But both of those players aren't rapid.
Brilliant point.
And yet I'm still open to seeing them come in. The difference for me is it's not about speed. It's actually about technical ability. It's about when you know those classic examples of where Xhaka wins a free kick in our half when he's under pressure. He's really good at it. He's like gets muscled out of the ball, but he falls over and wins a foul. He does it all the time. The thing that I want to see is the change in technical ability. I want to see a player like Ruben Neves, who's got a great ball control and when he's under pressure can work his way out of a space and continue the play. When people say that Granit Xhaka slows down the play, I don't think he slows down the play with passing. I think he slows down the play because he can't beat a man and he can't take the ball around a couple of players.
Burst that 10, 15 yards, which is important.
Now, it's interesting that we talk about Bissouma because to me, Bissouma's definitely faster. He's more mobile. But I wouldn't say that Bissouma is blessed with like top class technical ability to take the ball round a couple of players. So why is it about Bissouma for you then that is so much greater than Granit Xhaka out of instance?
I get that point. I just think that with Granit Xhaka, and this is, you don't necessarily have to beat a man. You know, like you can get like 20, 30 yards in football when players drop off or you win the ball on the press. You can just go 20 yards up the field, 20 yards with the ball, carrying the ball, getting, you know, going away from it. I don't think Granit's got that in his game, where you pick the ball up and travel 20, 30 yards, you know. I see Bissouma doing that. I see Partey doing that, you know. Now, you could argue with me and we could have a great conversation about that. Is that, you know, you give the ball to Partey and Partey does that, you know. That is part of the job. You know, there's always a saying, give the ball to someone better than you. That may not mean, say, better in ability, but that means it could be physically. So, like for someone who's got more pace than me, say for instance, and he can get to the halfway line quicker than me, you're going to give him the ball. But if you need to beat someone or pass it, like whatever, it can be something else. So I get that. I just think that if you have a look at Granit Xhaka, there's a couple of things that I just, when we haven't got the ball, we need to win it back quickly. I don't think he's got that burst of speed to get 5, 10 yards to the left, 5 yards, 10 yards to the right quickly, and get the ball, shut it down, win it. I will say this in his defence, and I'm going to really say this. Forget about Granit Xhaka now. Just forget about that he's ever played for Arsenal. If you watched him at the Euros and we was linked with him, everybody going, "Oh, that's a good player." Well, I like what I'm seeing there. That's the sort of player that we need.
Yeah.
And so I think whoever we get, and this is where I think that it's very, very important, and why I slightly lean towards Bissouma than anybody else is because he's Premiership experienced. Yeah, that he's done it in the Premier League, you know. So you're looking at someone like Granit Xhaka, who I thought was fantastic. I think was it the game against Spain? I think it was his last. Was his last?
It was against France. Was the best one?
Was it France?
France was the one.
Yeah, the one that drew 3-3 and they went through on penalties. He was immense. He was absolutely immense in that performance, and you would be drooling at that. So you've got to look at it and go, right. Bring it back to you've seen him. I just don't, as a goal, I just don't think that he settles into the Premier League. Now, the way that he plays and the style that he has, the attributes he has. There's someone just put in the chat today that I just seen it there that Cesc Fabregas wasn't quick, but Cesc Fabregas had lots of other things that were suited to the Premier League. It's not just about pace. If everybody had pace. If it was all about pace, we'd just see a lot of running around, and it's not about that. You know what I mean? It's about certain different things and all different aspects of the game. And I think that, you know, if you look at Granit Xhaka, people will turn around and say, "Oh, he's not a very good player. He's not this and that." He wouldn't be the worst player that's ever played in the Premier League, Tom. You know what I mean? You know, he's not a bad player. And I think that also you have to look at it, if you've not got the athleticism of someone like you've got that with Granit Xhaka, then get people around him that have got that. Now, just going back to the Fabregas thing there, Fabregas had probably like the one weakness in his game. And it wasn't a weakness. He wasn't electrically fast, but he had fast players around him. So he could pick the pass. It's not necessarily then you're worried about his pace. And there's certainly players like that all around, you know. Kenny Dalglish was a fantastic footballer back in the 70s and 80s. He wasn't blessed with pace, Tom, but he had Ian Rush alongside him and players like John Barnes and Payson around him, and he could dictate play like that. So it's very, very important that I think you have the right players around you, and I just don't think that Arsenal have got that. In fact, they're starting to get that. If you look at it with the little bits of, you know, the Martinellis now and the bit of pace that we've got. But I have to say, as good as Aubameyang's been for us, I think, if I'll be honest with Aubameyang, I think he's just lost a slight bit of pace, and that's what's causing issues with the goals. Granit Xhaka's never had that pace. So, do you know what? I'll tell you this now. Granit Xhaka will go on and play into his mid-30s because he doesn't have to rely on his pace.
Yeah. And for me, that's one of the reasons why I say the contract. The worst case scenario for a lot of people is Granit Xhaka signing a new deal, right? He and a couple of other people have kind of raised the point of saying, what's the benefit to Arsenal of Granit Xhaka signing a new deal? Like, he's 28 now. If he signs a new deal, we're not going to get any money from him at 30. I do disagree with that because of his style. I do think that you'd make a good fee for him still at 30, at 32, because he can go into his mid-30s, especially in somewhere like Serie A, where the game is a lot slower and you've got a lot more time on the ball. I actually think he would suit Serie A. I think, to be honest, if he was to move to Roma this summer, he would really have an amazing season.
It'd be a great sign for him, yeah.
He really would. And it is just about the Premier League, the lacking in space, the lacking in time that you get. And for me, I just think sometimes the kind of perception of a player and why we want a player and why we want another player can sometimes not necessarily be thought about the right way. You use the right word with dynamism. I think a lot of people use the word speed kind of too loosely about certain players, because speed isn't what makes a great midfielder. No. And speed what we need. We need, as you say, dynamism, and we need technical ability on the ball. And I feel like players like Neves and Guimaraes would give us that. I think that Bissouma, what he gives you is a lot more mobility. I don't think he necessarily gives you the technical ability that we might need, but he certainly gives us the discipline at the back, which is a big thing for us, because for me, Partey needs someone that unlocks him. Partey needs someone that he doesn't have to cover. And that's what he has to do with Granit Xhaka, is because Granit Xhaka is lacking in that kind of that across the ground pace, that he has to come in behind and mop up the spaces that Granit Xhaka is not there for. And I think that is what Bissouma would give you, is someone that's going to sit, someone that's disciplined, that someone can cover a lot of that defensive third space. And that's what we need. I feel like, Lee, we could talk about Granit Xhaka for an entire podcast.
I'll tell you what, it's a fascinating player. I'm going to say that he's a fascinating player because he has got fantastic attributes and he has got weaknesses. And, you know, he's got flaws in his game. He's got genius in his game. I really do believe that. You know, he's got a wonder of a left foot. It's a wonder of a left foot. But you know, there are parts of his game that I like, and the parts of the game that I like about him is that we don't get bullied no more. So if we was to lose that, I don't like it that we then would be dominated so much in midfield, like, you know, and you know, listen, you could argue about Granit Xhaka all day long with someone. Do you know what? If someone doesn't rate Granit Xhaka, here's a great point. If someone doesn't rate Granit Xhaka, they could continue and argue about it and defend that their stance for a very, very long time, and you couldn't argue against it, Tom. And if you got someone for Granit Xhaka, they could go on for it for 2 hours and you couldn't argue against it. He's just 50-50, black or white. Is bang in the middle, in the grey area, and that's as far as I see it with him.
I think he's a good player. I just don't think he's the right man in the right place at the right time for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty much how I feel as well.
Sam, thank you so much for the donation, mate. It says the benefit is stopping other clubs from fully dictating the value of our players and lowballing us. Before we move on from this Xhaka situation, Lee, let's talk about kind of Arsenal's capacity in selling players and kind of that situation that we find ourselves in with Roma. Roma obviously aren't willing seemingly to pay the 20 million euros that we're asking for. We're having a similar situation, Hector Bellerin as well, in Inter Milan only wanting a loan with an option type situation. Do you think this is the right time for Edu to kind of try and change the perception of us as a selling club with the players that we've got? Or do you think it's just too great of a challenge with the amount of deadwood and players that are surplus to requirements right now?
It's tough. It's tough. You're asking Edu to do a job that probably should have been done a couple of years ago, and actually make it trying to put right the mistakes of previous regimes, and that's always tough in my eyes. You know, some of these players are on far too much wages, so it's not actually the transfer fee; it's the wages as well. Like you know, Granit Xhaka is going to be on over 100 grand a week. You know, so at the end of the day, you're not only spending out a lot of money on the transfer fee, you're going to have to pay on wages. Now, some of these players, you know, that Arsenal pick up on good deals are only on £25,000 a week, £30,000 a week, and all of a sudden, like, oh, they're pushed up to £100,000 a week without even kicking a ball. Now, that's a tough thing. You know, I look at people like, if you would like wanted to sign Hector Bellerin, you know what I mean? Like, you're looking at £25 million for a right back plus very, very high wages. You're looking at Chambers, you know, is on big wages, you know, for a backup central defender, really, you know, and you can go through the whole team scenario of that. You know, Lacazette, 180 grand a week. So if you're going to spend 15 million on him, that's a lot of money. But if you was a club, you'd be thinking to yourself, well, hold on, I'll wait till next year, and then we ain't got to worry about all we've got to worry about is wages. Yeah. So this is the thing, you know what I mean? If you know, and if you're a club that's not desperate, you know, and I feel that we are desperate in certain areas. We're now 2 weeks away from the season, Tom. I think it's 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks today?
I think it's 3 weeks this weekend. I think it's 3 weeks.
Is it 3? I don't know what day.
I think it's 3. Yeah, I think it's the third weekend.
Is it 3 weeks today that we kick off on the 13th? So.
So no, sorry, it is 2 weeks. You're right. Jesus Christ, that's that shot round so quickly.
Yeah, so I think we're on the 30th now. I don't even know what bleeding day we're. Yeah, 30. Yeah, so it's 2 weeks today.
Jesus. Yeah,
it's 2 weeks today. We're going into that game without an attacking, creative midfield player. So we're going back. We're going back to what we was like the beginning of last season when we couldn't break down teams and it was awful to watch and everything like that. So we're now getting to a stage where we're getting desperate to get in a midfield player. Now, when that comes up, then that's when things can start. You know, you have to pay a bit more money and whatever, like, you know. So these clubs at this moment in time, some of them, you know, are desperate and some are not. And that is the problem we got, you know. I don't care what people can say that Emil Smith-Rowe is a player. Emil Smith-Rowe is not a creative midfield player. He's not the player that's going to pick pockets of pass and all that. What he does is he goes past players and does things like that. He's a different player to what we want. We need someone in there that's going to, when I think Arsenal struggled last season was when teams come in, put banks of 4, banks of 5 in front of us, break us down, and they pick us off on the counter-attack. That hence why we had such a poor home record. And we will continue to have a poor home record, Tom, if we don't address that situation. And in my opinion, you need more than one to break down banks of 4 and 5 and that. So you're going to need Emil Smith-Rowe in there and a creative midfield player as well. So one that takes the ball away with and stretches one way, and then someone that can pick the pocket of another. So I do feel that Arsenal now are in a position where, you know, if I was Newcastle, if I was, I don't know, a club looking at Willock or another club perhaps looking at Eddie, I would sort of sit there and think, you know, let's just hold fire at the moment here because we can maybe outpick the pockets of Arsenal, because Arsenal, I feel, haven't done the right things. I think if Arsenal would have come in, and this is what I've criticised their transfer market with, if they'd have come in and gone, bosh, 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 we've got Madison or whoever it's going to be, just say it is Madison, Basuma, we've got them in, right? Those players then that are on the fringe or deadwood, I don't like to say deadwood because I think that's a little bit harsh, but those fringe players that are not about, right, then have got a problem. Then they know they're not going to get into the first team or in and around at Arsenal. So say if it is Xhaka, for instance, like, you know, you ain't going to get it. So you're either going to sit in the bench and not play at all, or you're going to drop your wage demands. You're going to drop this and drop that to get a move. But Arsenal now have not done that. They're in a position now where all of a sudden the favour is starting to come towards the buyer. And that's the problem. Now, on the other hand, Tom, I think that Arsenal are probably doing the same with Odegaard or whoever they're looking for. They're doing the same sort of thing, holding out, holding out. It's a waiting game, isn't it? It's a game of poker, I think, this transfer window.
It's a really difficult transfer window for clubs like Arsenal that are looking for kind of these middling players. That's maybe not the right description, but it's an interesting kind of market for Arsenal because the first year that they want to try and push for players of a Premier League kind of standard with Ben White, they're linked to other Premier League players like Ruben Neves, Tammy Abraham, etc., which is weird because you'd think, well, we're affected by the pandemic. Why don't you go into the continent and say, look for kind of the best options out there because they're going to be available for less money right now? And it is strange that Arsenal are going for kind of more Premier League focus, which I've said that they've needed to do. It's just the timing of it, of why now is strange. But there are obviously other players, other positions. Clive raised a really good point earlier on in the chat. I'm trying to find it now. Here it is. He says, the most important signing is a backup keeper. We have all the other players in place. Quality is debatable, but we have them. And kind of bringing up the point that if, say, Leno was to get injured, we're pretty stuffed. Whereas you look at any other position on the pitch, we have... Oh, sorry, mate. If you have a look at any other position on the pitch, we are kind of covered. You look at right back, we're well stocked. You look at central midfield, the thing about central midfield is obviously if you lose, say, one of Granit Xhaka or Partey, you're then left with Lokonga, El Neni, Aziz, Maitland-Niles, which you'd say, yes, there's players there, but as Clive said, the kind of level of quality is debatable. Oh, he's got... No,
sorry about that. That's my neighbour. She always makes me a cake.
Every Friday. If they're watching, which I don't know, but the next time they do this show, they probably do. But I mean, the close point is that we don't have a backup goalkeeper right now, or rather, we do, but they are youth options or they're Runnison. So effectively, we don't have one. But everywhere else on the pitch, we have numbers. Whether their quality is good enough, we have numbers. Do you agree that that is the most important position that you'd be looking at this summer?
What, goalkeeper?
Backup keeper for Leno, yeah.
Listen, yeah, 100%, because, you know, football is a cruel game, Tom. It's a cruel game. So, like, first game, Leno could break down, get injured, and then, like, you've got nothing to back it up, like, you know. So I think that you've got to get in the right people at the right time. Now, I think Arsenal have the goalkeeping situation. Who's ever in charge of that, who's ever made the decisions on that, I hope that their contract's running out and they're not no more, because it's been an absolute shambles. It's been a shambles for a while, you know, on a goalkeeper. I think of a goalkeeper, and how I look at it is, and I think you do it two ways. You bring in a young, hungry goalkeeper that's going to be your number one in a few years' time, or you go, right, okay, we've got Leno, and you go for an older, experienced player that's been about, that can come in and do a job every now and then. I think that Matt Ryan, by the way, was fantastic. But Matt Ryan, if I'll be honest, was too good a goalkeeper to be a number two at this moment in time. So, you know, he was always going to get offers to go. And that. But what a fantastic signing he would have been. But ultimately, too good for a backup number goalkeeper. So very, very difficult, I think, a very, very difficult position to fill. I don't think, because you've got, you know, do you take the risk of a young up-and-coming goalkeeper or one with experience? We've got a good goalkeeper in Leno. I don't think it's top-notch by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a good, solid number one. So you've got to try and convince someone to come there and sit on the bench. Now, if you're of an ilk of Matt Ryan, that's going to be difficult to do, Tom. So I don't think it's an easy job. Right, let's go out and get a goalkeeper. So I think that, you know, it's got to be done. And it's a tough ask. But in saying that, we've made so many mistakes on it. It's been unreal. You know what I mean? Like, we got away with it, if I'll be honest, to a certain degree last season. That Leno never got injured at the beginning of the season or anything like that. But ultimately, I don't think Leno was 100% fit because he'd been out for so many months. Weren't that great? Do you imagine if you had Matt Ryan in there? I think Matt Ryan would have took his place at the beginning of last season, at the beginning of the season. But because we had no one and Leno wasn't playing really well, we had to go with it. It cost us points. So I think it's a priority. But for me, if you're going to keep Leno as number one, if you're convinced that Leno's your number one, then bring in someone that's in their 30s, 35, that's coming to the end of their career, that can come on the bench, play a few cup games and whatever. That would be my way of going. But yeah, I think it's a priority, but it's not going to be as easy as what people think it's going to be.
Let's jump into the chat box then and get some of your thoughts and feelings, and get some questions too. So if you do have one for Lee and you'd like him to have a crack at answering them, don't make it maths related. You know, it's not his strongest subject, but you can throw some Arsenal questions into the chat, and we'll go through.
Lots of weird names that I'm seeing as well. Like
Matt G says, last season we kicked off our season against Fulham with a front three of Aubameyang, Lacazette, and Willian. What are the chances of us kicking off against Brentford with the exact same front three?
Well, hopefully no chance. You know, like.
Do you feel like there's a chance that it will just be Pepe for Willian?
I don't know with Mikel Arteta. I'll be honest. You know, I'm at a stage now where I'm not prepared to judge him no more, only other than results, because I think when it comes to team selections and things like that, it'll blow your mind. You know what I mean? What he's actually going to be doing and whatever. Like, you know, for me, Pepe has got to start more often than not this season. But then, you know, people will say, well, what happens with Martinelli when he comes back, you know? So, you know, I think he's got to, you know, Saka, of course, has got to be in there as well. So you've got to, the front three that he picks. Isn't it funny, though, when you look at that game against Fulham, if you know, I wouldn't have any of them in that team now.
None of that first 11 from
yeah, we get nowhere near the first 11 now, and that just shows you how things are a year in football, how it goes. Aubameyang, I think, has got so much to prove in this next year. You know, really will be difficult. I think that someone like Aubameyang's one thing that he lacks is someone that's going to create him chances. So I can't see him making himself chances. He's not like Thierry Henry that could go around 2 or 3 players and score goals. He's got to rely on service. I think Lacazette, I wouldn't say patience has run thin in him. You know, he's just not. He's a good player. I really like him as a player, and the industry and work rate that he shows. But he's just not going to get to where you want to go. Pepe, I think, has got the ceiling's a lot higher with him. There's plenty more to come from him.
It's interesting you said about that Fulham team, because I'm looking at the team now. I think I'd like I mean, there are a few players in there that are like ifs and buts, but Gabriel and Tierney are the only two. Like Leno, Holding, Gabriel and Tierney are the ones I'd say, yeah, that they stay. Bellerin, Elneny, Xhaka, Maitland-Niles, Willian, Lacazette, Aubameyang. Like, we should have a much better team than that, and you'd hope that it will be better. You'd hope that maybe
it isn't at the moment.
It is. You're right. You're right. You're 100% right. That right now, the starting game against Brentford. I mean, let's do that. What do you think our starting 11 against Brentford is going to be?
Well, with the team that we've got at the moment, you're going to go.
You can include Ben White if you like.
We're going to say Ben White signed, or
yeah, we've seen the leaked photos.
So we'll say that. So you're going to go Leno. I think it'd be Chambers at right back at this moment in time. Leno in goal, of course. Ben White, you know, and Gabriel. I'd like to actually see Ben White probably starting either this game or against Spurs before he. You know, I can't stand it when the first game of the season and they're straight in.
Yeah,
but anyway,
last season.
You know, sometimes you have to go with that. Tierney will be there. I think that Partey will be partnering with Xhaka at this moment in time. That'll be the two there. I think Smith Rowe will be in the hole, which isn't good enough for Saka.
Do you not think it's good enough, Smith Rowe in the hole? That's a really interesting point.
No, I don't think he is. I don't think that he's that sort of player, in my opinion. I think that, you know, he's got. Do you know what? I'm going to say this now about Smith Rowe. I don't think he's good enough at this moment in time, probably to be in the team regular. That's going to get us to where we want to go. But in saying that, I reckon he is better than Jack Grealish at his age now. So that just shows you that, like, you know, the potential that he's got. You know, I mean, Jack Grealish is a very good player, but I think Smith Rowe at 21 was a better player than Jack Grealish. In 2 or 3 years' time, that's when we'll see the proper Smith Rowe, in my opinion. You know, 21 years of age, 21 years of age shouldn't be relied on to be your main man in the midfield or your main man up front. You know, very, very often it's not. Every now and then it does, like a Fabregas comes along or Mbappe or someone like that, you want to go in there. But ultimately, it's 24 onwards, and that's when I think Smith Rowe will be the player. And I think his ceiling is very, very high. But I don't want to see Madison. Madison. I don't want to see Smith Rowe being exposed like other players have been in the past and relied on and then burnt out and everything like that. And you could say the same about Saka as well. You know, like these guys should be on, not on the periphery, but like main players, but not all our go-to players to go and look at, you know, which they have been. You know, Smith Rowe come in last season, done a fantastic job, but he's got to improve on his goal scoring. He's got to improve on lots of aspects of his game. And he should be given time to develop those skills, Tom, not being thrown into the thing. And it really frustrates me when people turn around and say, "Oh, if we buy Madison and we buy that, it will stop his development."
I agree.
Not if it's good. Not if he's good enough.
I agree. Yeah,
he will come through. You know what I mean? Don't you know? And I think that is a point with me, like, you know. So, but I think that I think it's enough pressure being put on him already, giving him number 10. If I'll be honest, I feel.
Well, he asked for it apparently. So.
Yeah, and he's asked for it, you know. And now you know why the Aston Villa were sniffing around him, because I think that maybe he's, you know, he did think about maybe going to pastures new at some stage, or use that as a bargaining tool. Nobody knows. But ultimately, I don't think numbers really matter, if I'll be honest. It's not a pressure thing. But I do think that expectation is. And by putting a number 10 on his shirt now, everybody's expecting him now to be that number 10, expecting him to do this and do that. He's 21 years of age with not one full season yet at Arsenal. So, where he's played regular. You know, so that is a worry for me. And I think that it may be a blessing in disguise this season with the current state that we're in, that we haven't got Europe, so we haven't got that thing where I think that you got a player like Smith Rowe, like Saka, are going to be playing Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, or whatever. They'll be playing Saturday, having a week's break. So not a week's break, but you know what I mean, like, and then their next game, so they can rest, recuperate, train. So I think that may be a better thing for them for one season, Tom, just one season. But you know, ultimately, I feel that we're going to lack up there. My front three would be, going back to the game that started out. I'm going to throw it outfield now. I'm fed up with Arsenal missing chances. Too many chances. Even now, you know, dominating games and missing chances, you know, costing us games. So our best finisher in the team, as far as I'm concerned, when he goes one-on-one, and I like what I see, is Pepe. I think he's our best finisher. I'm going to stick him up top and play Martinelli and Saka in the wide areas. That's what I do. Pace, skill, and go that way. I know that he'll go with Aubameyang. That's what he will do. But, you know, as I say, I think you know, we've got Aubameyang, Bellingham, we've got, as you just turned around and said, we're overloaded in certain areas of forwards, you know what I mean? When's Eddie going to get a game? Bellingham.
Yeah, off the bench probably.
Yeah, but you've got 5 or 6 players there, and we only play really one of them up there, Tom. So it's an interesting scenario of what he's going to do. And I don't care what Martinelli said about Mikel Arteta being the world's best. You know, he ain't going to turn around and go, why he's in Brazil. Oh, by the way, Arteta's a clown, is he? Right?
I thought you were going to say something else there.
No, well, he's not. Well, I wouldn't say that. But, like, you know, he's not going to say he's a clown. He's also not going to turn around and say, also not going to say,
anything bad, because he wants to play at the end of the day.
He wants to play, of course. And also, you know, people are going like, people going on. Oh yeah, you know, everybody says about Arteta. Well, then I'm telling you that now. He's probably thinking, well, if I keep myself sweet and I don't get in this team, right? You know, I'm going to be here a lot longer than him. So I'm going to say all the right things. I'm going to do all the right things. And if Arsenal carry on like they had done last season and not winning games and him on the bench, who comes under pressure?
Yeah.
Arteta. So at the end of the day, he's not gonna say the wrong thing at this moment in time and put himself under the pump like Tom. He's not going to do it. So he's going to come out and say the right things. But I can tell you this now: if he doesn't get the game time that he deserves next season, I'll be a little bit miffed about it, because I'll tell you what, there's a lot of fans are a little bit miffed about the Saliba thing. You talk to a lot of Arsenal fans; they can't work that out, right? That we've bought Ben White, which is great for 50 million, but we could have actually put Saliba in there and put the money onto something else. So I think that with Mikel Arteta, he's got some really, we've got some, listen, talking about negative stuff, we've got some bloody exciting things at Arsenal with the youngsters. I've always said that. I had a big argument. I had to do a thing for Lads Bible, talking about Spurs and Arsenal, about potential. I think Arsenal are potentially in a very, very good place with the likes of Martinelli, with the likes of Saka, with the likes of Smith Rowe, Ben White young, Gabriel young, Tierney's not that old. I think Arsenal have got a very, very good core of young players coming through. You know, so where the ceiling's pretty high, of where they can go. How like an exciting thing is, how far can Martinelli go, Tom? It's exciting, really, when you think about it. Like, you know, potentially 19, 20, he's an excitable player. Same as Saka, look what he's done in the Euros this season. 19 years of age, Tom. I think he's 20 in August, I think, or September. Yeah, he ain't even 20 yet. Then you look at Smith Rowe, just 21. That's like some exciting times if it's done properly and get just a couple of players around him. It'd be really, really good.
I am excited about the kind of the where Arsenal could go, and it feels like the club are building towards something with the balance of the squad as kind of their key part of their recruitment, because Ben White only 23, Tierney's only just turned 24, you got Gabriel who's 22, Chambers is 26, and he's a good squad player at the time and could go on to be kind of a good player in that area for us. The forward line's a little bit more complicated because striker, of course, there's a big gap between Aubameyang and Lacazette and then all the way down to Balogun. There's kind of a gap missing, and maybe that's why we're after an Abraham or a Martinez. Maybe it fills that kind of gap there. And people talk about, why would you bring in a striker? It's going to limit the kind of the route for Balogun. But I think the same applies with what you said earlier on about Smith Rowe, is that say you go out and you buy an Abraham or you buy a Martinez. If Balogun's good enough, then he'll come off the bench and he'll take those chances that he gets and he'll force his way into the team or do it in training. And I think that's the same thing. I agree with you on Smith Rowe. I think that Arsenal would do well to go and get a Martin Odegaard in this summer. I don't think it blocks the path of Smith Rowe. I think they can play they can play together and have done. And I think that Smith Rowe, as you say, has got the potential to be one of the Premier League's best in the future. And if that turns out to be true, then we've got nothing to worry about, because I do think that he will come. Well, not even he already is good, but you know what I mean. He will.
He's a good player now, but essentially, the ceiling's high. The ceiling's high. I think, you know. Do you know what? Gabriel got a lot of criticism last season, but do you know what? I think for his first season in a poor Arsenal side, he done okay. There's potential there. You know, I felt it was a good foundation for his first season. Now he's got to kick on to make it even better. But I like what I see with him, like powerful, strong, no messing about. That's what I like to see. You know, I think basically now, Tom, maybe not so much in the right back area, but everywhere else, we're sorted for the defence for a very, very long while. Yeah. We've got, don't forget, Mari coming in there as well is decent. So Holding as a backup, a central defender, is what everybody's turned around and says he's a good centre half as a backup. So now you've got that. And he's not that old, Rob Holding, even though he looks it.
25,
so we can go there. So ultimately, the defence now is sorted. I think, you know. And
right back's the only one.
Yeah. We've got to sort that. So that's an issue, but that's we're nearly there. You know, the midfield, we've got Partey. We haven't really got that, you know, midfield, I don't think, set yet. We need a couple more. And as you say, just tinker with that forward line, and all of a sudden we're not far off, and with the potential to go a lot higher. So that would be there for me, and that's why I think that this transfer window is very, very important to see what happens, because it will tell us all we need to know. I've said that all along from day one. This season transfer window will tell us where we were, and I can guarantee you this now, and I'll tell you, we can have this debate about it when it comes on the final day of the season of the transfer window. Me and you, or whoever, you will be able to say, do you know what, this is where Arsenal are going to finish, and you won't be far wrong.
No, it's a sound thing, because at the end of the day, the transfers that we make in this window are so integral to where Arsenal are going to compete.
100%. 100%. If you look at if Arsenal don't do nothing now, and that's the season, the business is done, right? You're looking at 8th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. You're looking at that area. The transfer window goes positively, and we really go with it. Like, I think, because our midfield is poor, but if we was to improve that midfield, all of a sudden, from going, we're saying 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, we're going 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? That's a big jump, Tom. Big jump. So, you know, it's going to be difficult. Don't matter whatever way you look at it. It's going to be difficult to get into the top 4. I think if you want to go into the top 4, you've got to go and get a right back, 2 central midfield players, and a top striker. I don't think Arsenal are going to do that. And then, but if they did, who knows?
The thing is about Arsenal's kind of the crafting of the squad. The striker is something that we'll need to address at some point. I don't think it's something we need to address right now. Yeah, we have Lacazette, we have the Aubameyang. We've then got the guys coming through. I think it's one for next season when either Lacazette's gone or whatever, because it looks like he probably will eventually go either this summer or next. You've got Aubameyang there with 1 year left on his contract then. The midfield, as you say, we've got Lokonga, who I think is a great bit of business, that I haven't seen Arsenal do for quite a while. Just signing someone of like a real prospect for around the 10 to 20 million pound mark from, say, a European league that's been highly rated on the continent, could come in and for the future. We haven't really done something smart like that in a while, so I like that. You've got Partey that's now 28, that's going to go for a 3, 4, 5 more years. He's got the style that I think he would last well into his 30s at Arsenal as well. I think his style might transition slightly the older he gets, but I still think he'll be fine in those years to come. And if you add that quality partner next to it, him, the partner, and Lokonga, and then you've got Aziz coming through, looks a real talent as well. I think that midfield can be sorted with some DIY in the transfer market. The forward line, as I say, can be sorted with just a striker. And as you say, the defence is there. Like Gabriel, Mari as a left-sided pair are great. Tierney, and we've got the backup, the young backup into Virgin. That's sorted. Right-sided centre-back, Ben White and Holding, that's sorted. Right-back, that's what we need to focus on. And we need a backup goalkeeper, or just a competitive goalkeeper to go with Leno. And once you've got those pieces in place, there's potential, because every season, every young player that we've got is going to get better, and they're going to develop, and they're only going to move forwards with that game time. There is scope for this squad to really improve. It is down to those that hold the coffers to make the decisions and hopefully make them in the correct way. And that's always going to be the question. And I completely agree that on, August 30th or 31st, or whenever the transfer window closes, we will know with a pretty good idea where the most likely finish is going to be. And we'll sit, Lee, at the end of next season, we'll have a chat and we'll look back at this video that I guarantee we'll do one around the end of the window as well. And we'll be able to say how right we were. And as I say, I agree. I think we'll be pretty much spot on. It's been an absolute pleasure, Lee, to have you on, as always, mate. Really
no worries. Enjoyed that. That was a good chat, like, you know what I mean? So
you get to go and enjoy. Was it the cake that you got delivered?
I got some cake. Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of that, and I'm having myself a cup of coffee now and have a bit of cake and enjoy.
And you've got a lot of stuff going on that I want you to take the opportunity to tell the listeners about what's going on. Lee Judges TV, it's going well.
Yeah, it is going well. It's been really, really busy. So we're doing that. We're just doing some filming now in the studio, doing some chats and all like that. I'll have to get you down there, Tom, like to.
Absolutely.
So it's like a little bit. What it is like get to know your sort of thing, like with a few little, you know, I mean, a bit of a laugh as well. So, but a little bit of into the background. And I'll tell you what really come about that is someone asked me to do one of them, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, talking about school, talking about life before, how you got involved with Arsenal, how you got into your job, journalism. I really enjoyed it. So I've sort of took that on board and a little bit of a twist to it as well. So we've got loads of little things coming up, like games like where we're having a game, say for instance a game of golf that's going to be filmed, and you know, talking Arsenal and things like that. All sorts of things we're doing. So it's all going to be like big content and all that. So yeah, look out for it. Lee Judges TV. It's not always going to be about Arsenal. There'll be other things in it as well, you know. So getting Spurs fans on, we're getting Man United fans on, and, Chelsea fans. So there's going to be like scope for everybody, like, you know. So yeah, and yeah, we're for Series 2. You'll have to be on, Tom, like, you know.
100%, mate. Absolutely, no problem at all. I should be up in London a lot more soon, so I'm looking forward.
Brilliant. We're getting sorted, like, you know? So yeah, so I'm enjoying it. I've been, got to say, over the last sort of, I'm going to say this now, Tom, the watch along was sort of been an amazing thing for me personally, you know what I mean, because it sort of pushed me out there, I think, really, where I've been getting sort of different
how could they forget? He's done it again.
He's done it again, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and things like that. And do you know what, Tom, I'll be honest, when they said about these watch-alongs, I thought, nah, not for me. Who's going to want to watch them? It's just been an absolute, it's just gone out of the ballpark, I have to say. And from that, I've got so much more busier. It is incredible. Like, you know, every day I've had to now start putting in. I've had to, like, in my phone, a diary. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you know, because it's just gone manic. And like lots of opportunities have come up. You know, like working for the BBC and things like that. Just dreams, really. So can't knock it. So.
As I say, like, I mean, well, I first connected with you before it really blew up with AFTV and you, and I mean, for anyone that thinks like that they are, and whatever you think of the channel, like, Lee knows for a fact I'm not the biggest fan of AFTV.
No, I understand why people aren't. I get that. I do get that. You know,
and it's really important. I think people kind of separate the people with the platform, and I certainly do that with you, Lee. And people know how long you've been a part of this, and you've been on the channel for absolutely years and stuff, and you come back all the time, and now you're doing your own thing, and it's great. So I look forward to seeing some golf for you and Dan, and I look forward to that. And,
I think which is a very important thing is why, yeah, a lot of people ask when we do the channel, but there's also one of the things that I want to do a channel. You probably would relate to this as well, is that you can, when you work for someone else who are doing something else, you haven't got no control of how it goes and how it is and whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Now, I've just seen people in the chat saying, "Oh, the watch-alongs are for clowns and things like that." Like, that's their opinion, you know what I mean? So, but if whatever I do on my own channel is my say-so. So, you know what I mean? So if someone comes around and says, right, you know, I'm a clown, then I am a clown. Do you see what I'm saying? Because I've chose to be a clown, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think you've got like more control over things, you know what I mean? Anything that goes, I've got a fantastic team working with Tom, and I'll tell you this now, and anybody, you know, when you get into this industry, you need people to help you, and I'm, you know, entirely grateful for the people that are in the background helping me. But ultimately, it comes down to you and your channel and your say, and the same with myself. And I think that's important. That is important.
Yeah, having your own channel to control what goes on is great, and that's why when it comes down, because obviously you've seen likes of DT Troops have gone off and done their own thing, and like people talk about maybe that it's been used as a springboard, and I definitely think there is an element of that. Absolutely, like without AFTV, that the same kind of opportunities just wouldn't be there, like, because it's such an amazing platform to kind of, you know, trampoline in a way. But when you get your own channel, it's so good to have that control. Yeah, so good to have that same decision making process, that you can choose what you want to do, the people that you want to talk to, how you want to talk and behave,
how you want it to go, how you want it to develop, you know what I mean? Like, and that's something there, you know. And this not, you know, I know people don't like AFTV, and I for whatever reason I get that and that, but also you've got to understand it's a massive, massive thing now. It is like I've been on it. If it is from where it's gone to now, Tom, it's just incredible. Like the studios, the things that they do, you know. And I will say this when people say, "Oh, it's about negative and all that." There's a lot of positivity with it now, with some new people on there.
Yep. Danny Boy. Danny Boy's on there.
Danny Boy's on there. You've got like some young people like James and Cecil have come onto it that have, I think, been fantastic. You know what I mean? Like nice, likable guys that are bringing in good content and all that. Like, you know, and sometimes with not controversial, and I know sometimes controversial doesn't like get your views and all that, but do you know what? Good content will get you there in the end, Tom. It might take you a lot longer, but good content is what you got to do, and bring out things that people like and whatever. And people like controversial, you know, they do like that. Let's be honest about it. But they also like good content, and I think you got to get that happy medium. And hopefully that's what I will do, because there's going to be times when I'm on my channel and Arsenal have lost to, you know, I'm not going to be all nice about it, you know, as you well know. But ultimately, I like to think that I'm level-headed. When Arsenal do well, I'm complimentary, and when they're not, they're not. And the same with you, same with your show. I've always, you know, the professionalism of your show, and you know, I think what you do is fantastic. Like, you know, so
I appreciate that. I say you've been a big part of the show going forwards, and I'm sure you still will be. And obviously, with where it's come from, one of the OGs of back with Craig, of course, and then same old Arsenal that's
that's back on Monday. We're back on for another series of that. So looking forward to that. Joining up with the boys again. So and that I'll tell you what, Tom. This is the great thing about all this now. The different people you meet at Arsenal and different people and enjoy. I know you're the same. But I like meeting other Arsenal fans and getting their views, getting what they've got to say, you know, and they're not necessarily always agreeing with. We don't normally always agree. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. You know what I mean? But that's what you want, isn't it? You don't want like me coming on here and me and you agreeing, or you know, I think football's fantastic because it is about opinions, and my opinion is not right and it's not wrong. Same as your opinion, because you know why it's an opinion. And if someone's got an opinion on the state of a football club, then that's their opinion, and you've got to try and respect it. And I try and respect everybody's opinion. Not always going to agree, but you know, I love that. I love the interaction between Arsenal fans.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, I mean, you've just pretty much laid on the USP for TGT in itself. So there you go, amazing stuff. And you can check out obviously Lee Judge's channel. Is it at Lee Judge's TV?
That is it, like, yes, Lee Judge's TV, very original.
And you'll obviously check out the channel on YouTube by just typing in Lee Judge's TV. It will
just put that in there, put it up there. It should come up there, like, you know. So.
And I'll leave a link in the description as well, so you can find it there too. We'll be back a little bit later on this afternoon. In fact, you only have to wait just over an hour. We're doing our 5 p.m. Q&A show, so make sure you tune in for that. Other than that, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to Lee as always, and of course you guys in the chat box as well. And I'll see you very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.